Welcome to Center for Social Change. My name is Daniel Pewter. Today I get to interview James Echols, the founding director of Life is Art. So I love how you dress just in general, and
thank you.
You've introduced me to people in Miami. You're well connected. You're around Center for Social Change. You impact people's lives. Where did it all come from?
That's a long story. Are you kidding?
Can you give me the abridged version? Like, why do this? Why impact people's lives? Like you could go into
that's a different story. Okay.
You could go into the corporate world and make like $1 million. You're super smart.
Yeah.
You connect with people. You help people. But why this?
My mom was a hippie, and actually she was not quite the hippie generation, but basically she was a revolutionary and a change maker as well. She was actually the first one in the first class of ordained women in the Dallas seminary back in the mid '80s. So it was when our church was just starting to ordain women, and Dallas especially back then, was a very conservative area. And so that was just one, and that was when I was in high school. So that really was formative because she was really pushing boundaries of equality and equity and all of those issues. And so, but she's always been kind of very much an outspoken friend of the people, right? So I just picked it up, and I mean and my dad is a super kind person as well, very polite, and so I can't really attribute it to anything but my parents were great, and they taught me that caring about others is the reason we're here. So this is the way I do it. There are different ways that everybody does it. My talent just turned out to be influence or charisma or whatever you want to call that, right? So that's what I use as my ability. Some people are good at being firemen or police people or whatever, but this is what I do. So this is how I'm here.
Amazing. So are you from Miami originally?
No, I was born near LA. Okay. Moved to Seattle and then to Dallas. Lived in Dallas for quite a while for my dad's work. And my dad's family is from the West and Central Florida, Southwest and Central Florida. So I visited Naples and Everglades City and all those places over there on the west side a lot, and I have a ton of relatives over there. We call them relations from the South. So I have the river of grass in my blood from my family, and I'd just been down here so much. It was the late 90s, early 2000s. We were taking vacations, just from work. We were about that age where started taking vacations. Came to Miami a few times, loved it. It was really my kind of town, just insane beyond all belief. And like I said, I'd grown up a lot in Dallas, and so it's very conservative there. And there was some pockets of insanity, but mostly very conservative. And so when I got here, and it was just all like you could do and be whatever you wanted. It was so crazy that I fell in love with the place. And so now it's great because I live about 2.5 hours from my folks who have retired to Naples. So that's a great distance from your family. And I love the Everglades. I love the ocean. I love the nightlife. I love the culture of Miami, that whole very salsa Central South American Latin style, but also with a lot of influence from Europe and from Eastern Europe and Asia and everywhere. Miami is such a cornucopia, I guess, of different cultures that you really can, you find kind of everything you want here. And so I love that multiculturalism down here. So that was, just fell in love with the place and moved here 16 or 17 years ago.
Okay.
And kind of immediately got into the nightlife world. And I got a job, and then I ended up getting a job with a record label down here called Henry Stone Music. He was the founder of TK Records and discovered, he was a big guy in disco, discovered Casey and the Sunshine Band, lots of stuff like that. So the original Miami sound came out of his studios, essentially, and we're in Hialeah, I think they were. And so it was great, and I did a little nightclub promotion, this and that and the other thing. And we really got into the arts world just as a way to kind of like, it was when Wynwood was just getting started and it was still super sketchy, still dangerous, but very energetic. And you could feel that the people who were there, the galleries who had taken the risk to be there, really were excited and maybe a little scared about being there, but it was great. And so, once you get a little bit beyond the nightlife age, which I stretched it out about 10 years longer than most, but we're still looking for stuff to do. And so going to art parties and stuff became more and more intriguing. And so we just got out. We knew so many artists and gallerists and just people in the art world that as we were going through, about 10 or 11, 12 years ago, we really noticed that the local artists were not having any opportunities, despite the fact that Art Basel was huge, Wynwood was growing, Design District was already big, the arts in Coral Gables were big as well. So there were, and then we had the Coconut Grove Art Festival, which is, as far as I know, the largest art festival in the world. Yep.
Wow.
And,
like when you're saying how big, like artists come in from all around the world.
Artists come in from all around the world, and the last I heard, well, I don't know what their thing is. 10 or 15 years ago, their attendance was 250,000. It's probably more than that now.
Do you see art being taken out of like our kids? So maybe art isn't as big as it really could be because in schools we don't have that.
100%. I mean, that's a huge problem. The other problem is that there's numerous kind of problems in that area. One is, because the arts have come out of the schools, we're not producing as many artists, right? And that's not just true in Miami, of course, that's cross country. But also art, there's so many studies that show how impactful art is to other subjects. So if you involve a kid in the arts in any form, not necessarily like visual, music, dance, theater, whatever, they do better in the STEM subjects as well. There's plenty of research to show that that's true. So by taking the arts out, first of all, we're depriving them of an area of joy because art brings joy to people. But we're also depriving them of real intellectual stimulation that could be helping them across the board, right? And then after they get out of school, this is particularly in Miami, but probably other places, but after they get out of school, there is no support system for them here in Miami, right? So even if we did get a good high schooler and taught him how to be an amazing artist or she, and they were doing great, then once they get out of school, they're still, where do you go? Most of the galleries in Miami still feature international artists or well-known artists. They got bills to pay.
Yeah,
it's legit. But there's no ecosystem in Miami for emerging artists, like there is in some cities, right?
Do you find that there's a lot of like business planning and like the business side, because artists are usually artists, they like to do art, right?
Right.
So I find a lot of time where it's interesting to me where we take the arts out of the schools and then we come up with this thing called art therapy or music therapy or whatever.
Yeah.
Which, the last 50 years we've had it in school and it was the therapy, but now we're branding it as therapy.
Right.
Which it helps us really connect to who we are and
100%.
Show off what we're about.
Right.
Whether with music or painting or
Yeah,
I like the graffiti these days down in Wynwood.
Yeah,
gorgeous.
Very true. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of aspects to that. So yes, artists are not taught business skills, and that's a big problem. So when we started, one of the things we started 10 years ago, we started the organization. One of the things we started doing was producing seminars about the business of art. So if you're an artist, you don't have any business skills because they don't teach them in school, or maybe you're just a self-taught artist, then we would teach you things like financing and marketing, social media, all that kind of stuff that you don't get to learn in school. We'd bring in experts. So that was immediate need that we saw after we did our first show. Literally, we did our first show and we realized, oh my God, these artists don't know how to sell. They don't know how to run and we knew so many artists that were getting ripped off by, they'd put their art up in a restaurant or a nightclub or whatever, and then the art would get ruined or stolen or who knows what. And so they didn't know how to read a contract. They didn't know how to negotiate a contract, even if they could understand it. So all of that stuff. So that's one of our main programs, is trying to teach that business. And then art therapy is, again, there's so much research, and I do a lot of research for our programming, right? So I talk about it a lot. But there is tons of evidence that shows that art helps everybody, whether it's with just regular people dealing with stress and anxiety, or maybe you're physically or mentally disabled or injured, and it helps you rehab from that. It helps elderly overcome things like, not overcome, but deal with things like Alzheimer's and stuff like that. So it helps everybody in all those areas of life, and to kind of take it out of, I mean, I'm glad to see that people are branding it back in, but to make it such like a separate thing, right? It's just life. That's why we call it Life is Art, right? Because it needs to be infused into all of life. And then you don't need to have art therapy because you've been doing art since you were 3, and you don't have to be good at it. Sorry, since you were 3, and you don't have to be good, and you don't have to sell it, or whatever. Maybe you just sit around and play a guitar for your family, right?
Yep.
I mean, you think about the pioneers. That was the thing they did. Everybody could sing. Everybody could play a guitar because that was their evenings, or the piano. That was their evenings entertainment.
Yeah.
And nowadays we've really gotten away from that sort of everybody does something artistic idea, and and that's. Yeah, we got where we are.
I'm a stick figure artist.
Are you?
Yeah, my
Nice.
brother's an oil painter, so
Yeah.
I think we all have our own
Of course.
thing.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because as a kid, I think we're inspired, or at least my generation, 25 years ago.
Sure.
We did more art-based projects.
Yeah.
And I find that my kids that I work with, like in juvenile halls or whatever around the country, that are challenged, they're so artistic, whether with their words or with their. So where's your focus? And what are the outcomes you want to create?
So our focus is different than a lot of organizations. We're really focusing these days on. It's kind of a dual focus, but our thing is community development through the arts, right? So what that means is that we want to be able to come into a community and not in the kind of invader sort of way, but in the way where we're very sensitive to the way that community is, and use the arts to lift everybody up. So I mean, a lot of it's going to be like we talk about economic, social, and cultural development, all of those, right? A lot of people only talk about economic development, but we like to include all of those, right? So the idea is to use the arts to produce other positive outcomes, right? So whether that's reduction of crime, increase in local salary, whatever it is, whatever it does to help improve that community. Now, the second part of that, maybe it's the first part, we need to have a strong arts ecosystem to be able to use it then to build communities, right? So one of our main focuses is supporting those local artists, and again, teaching them how to make money, providing them with opportunities. So we do a lot of art shows, providing them with opportunities to show their work and sell their work. That's how they make a living, right?
Yep.
And so we have to have a strong arts ecosystem, a strong arts community of artists, to then be able to do the other work that we want to do. But we're really, we're really all about social justice and equity and all of those things, and that's our big long-term goal is to be able to reduce maybe not reduce the wealth gap, but improve the lives of people who are at the bottom. And in the middle, right? All of those people. So if we can get a rising tide, it raises all. That's not a good analogy in Miami anymore, is it?
Rising tide.
Rising.
We don't want the tide to rise anymore here in Miami because we're going underwater.
Right.
So I look at the youth, and I what age demographic do you guys work with mainly? Is it like high schoolers, right after high school, 20-year-olds?
Yeah, most of ours are emerging. What I would call emerging professional artists. So they may or may not be being paid as artists right now, but that's their goal. They want to be full-time artists, right? So generally, those are. It's funny. Generally, those are people who are kind of right out of high school, right out of college. But we have also had retirees who have gone back into art after they did whatever boring job all their life. And they want to get back and become professional artists in their retirement. A lot of people retire and then just piddle with art, which is fantastic, right? That's really awesome, because then you can use the art as your own personal therapy and express yourself, but you don't have to worry about selling it. But some people really, like, that was their passion all their life. Now they're retired and they get to go back to their passion, right? So basically, I mean, it's kind of all along the spectrum of ages, depending on when they decide. And we've had, I think our youngest artist that we featured at our shows was 15 or 16.
Wow.
Because he was, at that point, he knew that was what he wanted to do. He had a body of work that he was able to bring to the show. Because that's one thing that you need to be able to do a show, is to have work to show, right? And so basically at any point, but we also do a lot of collaborative work with other organizations. And so any way that we can, if there's an organization that specifically works in the schools or with school-age children, even very young children, and there's ways we can enable them. For example, we've worked with some organizations that needed teaching artists. And so they would come to us, hey, do you know any artists? Well, we know hundreds, right? And those artists, some of them are good at teaching, some of them maybe not so much, but some are good. And of course, they're always needing income. So we've been able to match teaching artists with organizations who are looking for artists. So, we work in that way where we can, and that's part of our building communities, right? Is by empowering other organizations through our own connections or our own skills, abilities, whatever we can do to help them, then that builds the whole community. So we don't necessarily have to do everything, but we can do enough to where we can help others who are doing those things as well.
And you've connected me to multiple people, and so you're that connector piece in definitely Miami area.
Yeah.
What would you say makes you successful in connecting? Because to be a connector, people have to want to work with you. Like
honestly, it's practice. I know that sounds funny, but I tell people a lot that interpersonal skills are skills. You're not born that way, right? When you're a baby, all you do is scream. And you have to learn those interpersonal skills. And you can. There's plenty of books and magazines, observe other people, all that kind of stuff. I know it sounds funny, but it's really true. And so when I was younger and I decided, and I went into business, my wife and I, we went into business for ourselves when we were like 25. We opened a specialty retail store, and I realized very quickly that that was not something that we'd done a lot. I had a newspaper route and all that kind of stuff, but never really actually gone into business. And so I very quickly realized that business really is about relationships. That's it. It doesn't matter what business you're in, you've got to have relationships. And so at the age of 25, I really set about learning how to create solid relationships. And it's not, it's great to be like I'm honest, I'm trustworthy, all that kind of stuff, right? So that's good. But even if you are that, there's still the communication is the thing, right? And so you have to be able to convey your trustworthiness, and you have to be able to speak to people so they'll listen, and so you can listen to them and hear what they're saying. So those are just, and honestly, those are really just skills you can learn and you can practice. And I recommend everybody do it, because it is a skill that anybody can learn. It's not like dancing or playing the oboe in the orchestra or something, where you have to be like kind of naturally good at it. So, and I think I was probably born with a natural gift of gab, so that's always good. But yeah, it's funny. The reason I put it like that is because what I don't want is for people to despair when they realize that, oh my gosh, to be a successful artist, I have to have relationships, right? Or whatever business you're in. I don't want them to despair and say, I can't do that. I can't, nobody likes me, or I don't communicate well. You can. That's possible. Don't despair about it. Just understand that it's a skill you can learn, and then go learn it.
So I find that in the world, people love what they love, and a lot of time they're not taught other things. They're not taught the business, they're not taught the personal relationships, they're not taught the branding side of it.
Right.
And so it's interesting on how you guys are taking the approach on when you're building the culture, the economic development will shift. And I just pitched somebody, because with our schools, I'm like, if we build the kids, then the companies want to come in.
Right.
So you build the community, and the economic development shifts.
100%.
So I think it's a systematic approach that you guys are taking, which very little, maybe less than 10% of nonprofits take an approach like that.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that methodology of, and in like 10 or 20 years, what are like, let's say what's one thing you need right now to be able to hit your goal in the next like 3 to 5 years?
So it's funny that you asked that. So I came from the for-profit world. Like I said, we started our business when I was 25. And that was when I realized, oh my gosh, I love being my own boss. I mean, when you run your own business, you're really not. You're boss of your clients. But, you know, my bosses were my customers. And so I had to carry what they wanted, you know, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But, which is another realization you have to go through when you become your own boss. But, so from there, from running our own business for a few years, I actually became a business coach, and I was helping other people run their businesses. I had business ideas, so I was writing business plans for myself. So I taught myself how to write business plans, just again from researching other business plans and looking, you know, writings and reading business journals and stuff, really boring stuff. So I've written a number of business plans, and that's the thing about a business plan, right? It's very systematic. Mm-hmm. You write down exactly what you want to do, and they're usually really long. The longest one I ever wrote was 500 pages.
Ooh, we just did ours. It was almost 600.
Was it really?
It's corporate accreditation for our schools. So it's still a business plan, but it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
I've never seen anything that even more than 20.
No, and ours is, so the one we use for Life is Art, and it's not complete, but it's about 75 pages now, because I recently wrote it. When we started Life is Art, we didn't have a business plan. We were just like, we're going to throw art parties, and everybody's going to come, and we're going to make money. No.
Nobody was coming?
We had tons of people coming. We were not making any money. That was the problem.
Because it was the planning.
Right.
It was a systematic approaching to understanding.
And I've been in the event production business since I was like 13. So when I was young, I was a youth leader in our church, and we would organize youth events big. When I was 17, I was the director of an international youth fair that was 20,000 people.
Wow.
So, yeah. And it was all run by kids, like between 19 and 15.
Whoa.
And I was the chairman of the youth council. I can't even remember what it was called. But anyway, basically I was in charge. And so that, it really just got in my blood. And so I've just been doing that all my life.
So what's one thing you need that you don't have today, that if you had it, you could make that much more impact?
Dinero, you know.
So to do what? Like, would it be throwing more events? Would it be getting more?
Yeah, so the idea is the larger the events and the more numerous the events, the more impact we have, right? If you throw an event for 600 people, well, there you go. You impact those 600, maybe a few on social media, whatever. Mm-hmm. If you throw an event for 60,000 people, well, now you're impacting way more people, right? Mm-hmm. And so we have a whole kind of a treatise of this in our business plan about how major festivals, and you can look at this across, this is some of the research we've done, you can look at this across the country, world, major festivals define a city, mm-hmm. right? And they empower certain communities. So think about South by Southwest for Austin. And then Austin is that's a huge live music festival. Mm-hmm. Austin is well known for having a massive live music scene, right? Goes together, you know, and like in Miami, we have the massive food and wine festival. Started out small. Miami's food scene started out small. And if you notice, they've grown up together so that our food and wine festival is now one of the largest in the world, right? Mm-hmm. But they have to be homegrown, and that's why things like Art Basel and stuff like that haven't really had that much impact. You look at Ultra, which is now having some controversy, but still, it's one of the largest music festivals around. It's one of the major music festivals, and it focuses on EDM music, on electronic music, whatever you want to call it. And you look at the music scene in Miami, and it's very heavy in electronic music, right? Mm-hmm. So those things came up together, mm-hmm. and so large festivals, large events like that, especially at the international scale, those are the things, not only do they help support that particular industry in the city, mm-hmm. but they're also what the world perceives, right? If you want to talk about having media impact across the world, everybody across the world knows what South by Southwest is, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody knows what Coachella is. There's these certain, everybody knows what the Coconut Grove Art Festival is. Mm-hmm. You get, 500,000 people to it. So that's our ideal, is to be able to create events of that scale, mm-hmm. so that we can not only support certain industries in Miami, certain arts industries in Miami, but also be able to create that viewpoint in the world that, oh, Miami does have this or this or this or whatever. So basically, yeah, we're looking for money to finance growth, right? We're kind of a grassroots organization now. We'd like to become a international institution, and there's a process, and we have that. That's all. Like you said, it's very systematic. We have that all listed out in this business plan. We have a 5-year plan to get from here to there, exactly like how we do, the order we do it. So we have a bunch of different programs that we would launch, and we do it in this order, and the whole thing is, but that's where I got it, was being an entrepreneur, being in the for-profit business. I learned to be very systematic. Fortunately, I kind of am anyway, so it worked out. And so when we approach the nonprofit world, I'm still same guy, very systematic. But you're right, it's very, like I had a consultant with me, and we were working, and I said, I need to write a business plan. And that was when and this was only 3 years ago. That was when I learned that, because I said, hey, can you show me some models from other nonprofits for their business plans so I can kind of see how they do them, right? Mm-hmm. And that was when I learned that I think the number is 3% of nonprofits have actual business plans.
It's crazy.
And that's including some have strategic plans, mm-hmm. They call them different things, marketing plans, whatever. Out of all of them, only about 3% have those. And it's insane. Like overall, like maybe you'll create a plan for like a certain grant. You need to create a program plan. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them do have plans for certain programs, but none of them have overall business plans. Yeah, I think it's crazy, but I mean, what do I know? I'm having trouble raising money, so maybe I don't need a business plan. They seem to all raise good money. So
it's amazing what you're doing with impacting our youth to create the next generation.
Yeah.
Where can people find you? How can they donate? How can they come and volunteer, be a part of your cause, and give, or whether time, talent, or the treasure?
We're Life is Art Fest across the board. So website. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whole 9 yards. We're Life is Art Fest.
Okay.
So yeah, they can, and I respond very well to DMs or messages or whatever. So any of those ways, and then you can contact us through our website. There's contact form, whole 9 yards. Yeah, and we're always looking for people, and we're also the one thing that we're really looking for is organizations, businesses, municipalities who need help bringing the arts into their programming. So that's what we really like to do is, especially if, like we do like working with your organizations like yours where we can provide teaching artists or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. That's great. But we also like to work with non-arts organizations to help them bring arts in to empower whatever their programming is, whether it's environmental, helping the homeless, cancer research, the whole 9 yards. Art can impact all of that. And that's why the name of the organization is Life is Art. I always tell people the word life is the first word. Like we're all about life, but through the lens of art, basically.
I love it. You guys check out lifeisartfest.org.
That's it.
On their social media, add them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and have an amazing week, guys. Think about how and what you use art in your life, and reach out to James and just plug him a little note if you love this podcast about how he is transforming communities through art. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.